Peace and blessings, starry travelers. Last month's eclipses were super powerful, and there's a lot to get to this month, so let's dive in without delay. There is a new moon. It will be backed by the stars of constellation Pisces. It aligns March 18th, 2026, close to Saturn Neptune, and aligned with fixed star Shiat, Beta Pegasus. It's a very interesting new moon. There's a lot of power here. It's in an absolute power spot on the zodiac, and we'll get to that. The full moon in Virgo on April 1st, 2026, will reflect that Pisces sun. And that alignment will be, that opposition will be T squared by Jupiter from the degree of fixed star Alpha Canis Major Sirius. We'll talk more about Shiat and Sirius, and we'll check out all the charts and transits and overview the lunar cycle the way we usually do on this channel. The cycle of March 2026. It's been a lot already lately, and it's not looking like it's going to slow down. In fact, we're likely to see things kind of steadily accelerate towards the July-August 2026 season. And at that time, I think it's very likely that we'll start to see what we're really dealing with on the geopolitical stage. And that's the whole eclipse season, that 6-month season between last month's eclipse and August 2026's Leo eclipse. All right, fam, there's no time this month. Away we go. And just to orient everyone to the heavens that we're looking at for this new moon, we're seeing sun and moon align in Pisces, very near to the Saturn-Neptune conjunction. Pisces is absolutely populated right now, very heavily populated. We have Venus, Eris, Chiron. We have Ceres just moving into Aries. And for those of you unfamiliar, Ceres and Eris are dwarf planets within our solar system. Ceres between Mars and Jupiter, and Eris out past Pluto, a trans-Neptunian object. Looking forward, looking ahead in the zodiac, we see Uranus in the area of the Pleiades in Taurus. We see Jupiter still in this very, very important degree in the zodiacal degree, the ecliptic degree of two fixed stars, Canopus and Sirius, that are absolutely lighting Jupiter up, for better or worse. And coming around, let's see, we missed a node, so we have the south node in Leo. But we have to come the whole way back around towards the territory of Sun and Moon again, into Capricorn, before we find Pluto. And in Aquarius, we have Mars and a very close Mercury North Node conjunction. And that's the way the heavens look for this new moon, March 18th, 2026. And when we look at this chart in 2 degrees, we see a Pisces new moon in the degree of a fixed star, Beta Pegasus Shiat. We have the new moon conjunct to Saturn Neptune, and we have the new moon sextile to Uranus in Taurus, and that is a very close 0-degree relationship. Those are the main features of this new moon. So let's start here and break it down. A Pisces new moon in the degree of fixed star Shiat is something that we may recognize the energies of, because Saturn and Neptune just recently conjoined. That was February 20th last month in this degree, the degree of fixed star Shiat. Pisces is a really predominant planetary energy. Right now we have 7 planets and 1 major comet in Pisces. This month and next month's new moon happen in Pisces. So the sun is going to spend the entirety of this cycle in Pisces. Pisces in astrology has a lot of interpretations depending on which culture, but it's most famous for transcendental energy and confusion. The problem with that is Pisces isn't universally confused, and nobody really knows what transcendental means, even though it's like a pretty overused word in astrology. So you could say there's a lot of confusion around, like, what is transcendence, practically speaking? But Pisces doesn't tend to speak practically, so Pisces is where we find the woo-woo, which is just how normative types describe information that comes from a source that isn't the left brain. Virgo actually is concordant with kind of left brain consciousness. So Virgo and the left brain can kind of always show their logic, and in what's called modern Western culture, we're kind of robotically insistent that the true and only way to approach information is like rigorously with logic and rationale in a linear stepwise way. It's a very Virgo heavy culture, but none of that is true for Pisces. Constellation Pisces has a vivid history representing those dimensions of experience like daydreams, visions, dreams, inspiration, artistic and otherwise, downloads, spirit guides, mediumship. And what do all those have in common? Direct, non-rational access to information. The left brain's kind of if X, then Y. The whole process bypassed completely in Pisces. Okay, this gives people weird feelings when you bypass the processes that modern culture places such a prized value on. So they call it woo-woo, but this is information transmitted kind of directly via what we think of today as like right brain channels, right? So Virgo's left brain, Pisces, very right brain. Even left brain, right brain is an artifact of the modern world in our thinking, because we think in terms of brain, brain good. But I mean, there's a lot more to this Pisces Virgo thing than just brain. If Virgo is our waking consciousness, Pisces is our dreaming consciousness. Okay. If Virgo is our thinking, Pisces is our knowing. Okay. And as always, we can understand so perfectly in comparing here opposites, because the intention of Pisces is always going to be to balance with the intention of Virgo. So we can understand Virgo as like crisp, rational, clean, organized, methodical. Virgo's on Swiss time. They're on time every time. Pisces is on island time. Okay, Pisces is on natural time. Pisces is on native time. Pisces is nebulous, diffuse, hazy, and hypnotic when it comes to time. So we'll look at this relationship and the comparison between Pisces and Virgo more in the full moon section, when we look at the axis of the Sun in Pisces, Moon in Virgo. For now, it's just helpful to understand Pisces, where all this energy is, really in terms of its comparison and contrast to Virgo. And this new moon alignment here at almost 9 degrees into Pisces takes place aligned with a star that is pretty important. That's pretty important for a beta star well off the ecliptic. The star, fixed star Shiat, Beta Pegasus, is one of the stars of the Great Square of Pegasus asterism. And for that, we're going to tag in the stellarium view. We're going to come back to this view where we see Sun and Moon in early Pisces, right around the 9th degree of Pisces. And we see Shiat here, fixed star Beta Pegasus. Shiat can be associated with the myth of Pegasus, who sprang from the blood of the dying Medusa as that blood hit the sea. But we've talked about that already in prior videos. Beta Pegasi Shiat is a star that marks the emergence of like new genius. Okay, it is a real breakthrough star. that is capable of brilliance, outstanding performance, concepts that seem blinding or dizzying or awesome to those still watching the shadow play on the walls of the cave, right? Shiat is like out of the cave. Shiat is the key. Shiat provides and symbolizes and correlates with keys out of the cave. Okay, this is really, really, really important about Shiat. And there's another thing that's really, really important about Shiat. So it does provide intense realization, creativity, pioneering out of the box spirit, and it's needed to make quantum leaps. And at the same time, Shiat comes with this long shadow of heartbreak, sorrow, and even disaster. So we have Shiat, very bright light, very long shadow. It has an absolutely nasty reputation in astrology, and there are numerous examples of people with Shiat who show why that's the case. And I want to call some attention, just while we're here, to some of the examples of Shiat, people with Shiat prominent in their charts who expressed its brilliant and positive manifestations. So, just really quickly, Michelangelo and Edward Casey had their sons here. Vincent van Gogh had a Venus-Mars conjunction in this degree of Pisces. Simone de Beauvoir, the groundbreaking philosopher, had a Moon-Mars conjunction right here. Prince, Che Guevara, both had Mars here, as did the notorious cage fighter Conor McGregor. I said did, but he's still alive. So Conor McGregor does have his natal Mars here. Friedrich Nietzsche had his Jupiter here. And there's so much that we could say about that. Jupiter symbolizing God and Nietzsche declaring God is dead. But nonetheless, that was his placement. Walt Whitman, Karl Marx, and the controversial poet Charles Baudelaire all had Pluto in this degree. So we don't see it universally ruining lives. We don't see it universally destructive. We see that Shiat has really, really very significant power, that this degree can have very significant power. And it's actually pretty rare that the significant power of a degree come from a star so removed from the ecliptic. So I started to look into the power that's right here and just what is that? And we'll get to that. We'll get to that later in this video. This is an awesome PowerPoint. For now, I want to focus on this new moon. We're breaking it down in stepwise fashion. And what I want to focus on now is the conjunction to Saturn Neptune. We have a signature of general social change and revolution, and there's a really great discussion on this conjunction. I'll link in the description. The ISA did a panel discussion on Saturn and Neptune in conjunction. This went exact February 20th, 2026. That's last month. And 8 days later, Israel and the US attacked Iran and killed the Ayatollah. When we look at this all, we can see it as being aligned in the degree of Shiat. And that's again, it's like the only major important star that really correlates, that really aligns with this degree of the zodiac. So we have a lot of obvious power here, and you know, it kind of raises the question, like, what's going on? Does Shiat do all that? Does this little sort of less important star really manifest that way? And I want to share some cool findings with you, diving into the deep astrology machine. Yeah, so we have a new moon alignment with Saturn Neptune. Okay, just to take this in a stepwise fashion, that's the alignment I want to look at next. I've said a lot about this recently. It's been the topic of a lot of lead-up hype including on my channel. And we have general social change and revolution described by this. It went exact last month, February 20th, and 8 days later, the US and Israel went to war with Iran. Killed the Ayatollah and started a holy war. So, you know, we have something that fits the pattern of social change, of revolution. But one point that isn't getting a lot of attention with Saturn Neptune, and I want to cover it now that new moon is here, is that these alignments happen on a part of the ecliptic that's an absolute PowerPoint. So I'm going to explain why this is a PowerPoint, and explain why this degree of the zodiac is something we really need to keep our eye on. Then I'm going to detail the new moon, and then we'll come back. We'll come back to the connection between Saturn Neptune and US Israel versus Iran. Okay, that's the general trajectory of this video. So we're going to take a look now at why this is a PowerPoint. And to do that, I'm going to tag in the celestial equator. Now this is an extension of the terrestrial equator. If we extended the equator into space, okay, what we would see is that is you know, crosses the ecliptic in early Virgo, and it crosses the ecliptic in early Pisces. We call this ascension declination 0. This is where these two meet. Let's get the ecliptic in here so we can kind of have a sense of them meeting. Where the ecliptic and the celestial equator meet is right now at 10 degrees and 20 arc minutes Pisces. Also, this point, now this moves. This point moves slowly over time as ascension declination 0 moves this way. And when it moves into Aquarius, we will be in the age of Aquarius. So this has a connection to longer cycles of time. This point right here is also roughly square to the galactic center. So if we look at the galactic kind of cross, we have galactic center here. We have its opposite point where the stars of the Milky Way come up. They cross the ecliptic right near the degree of Betelgeuse. So here we have a galactic opposition point. We call this the Silver Gate, and it's known to be important. Well, here's their square. Here's their square in between the conjunction and opposition to galactic center. Now, beyond that, this point is very near to the degree of, right about here is Southern Galactic Pole. Okay, the Southern Galactic Pole. That's a new concept for a lot of you, I'm sure. But what we're talking about is the stars here of the Milky Way, the disk of the Milky Way. If we look at 90 degrees from the disk of the Milky Way, if we look 90 degrees down, we see the South Galactic Pole. It's not an impossible concept. That is here, right in northern Sculptor. Not a constellation we talk about much. So this becomes an electrified degree of the ecliptic from every direction. We have a southern influence, very significant. We have a northern influence, very significant. We have a terrestrial influence that's very significant. That's all it takes. That's all it takes to make a PowerPoint, to make a power spot on the zodiac. And don't forget my story, friends. This point, ascension declination 0, aka the northern hemisphere vernal equinox. This is what the mainstream astrological world calls zero Aries. I know, it's Pisces. But everywhere we see talk of this potentialized energy, this potent, dynamic energy of disaster and heartbreak and breakthrough. And we see it talked about in terms of Saturn and Neptune meeting at zero Aries. Okay, war omens. It's a really easy conceit if you think that Aries is here. Yeah, if you think that Aries is there, in that confusion, you would interpret it as war and aggression. The conceit from a Piscean point of view is that this is actually about winding down, about endings. That's a Piscean function. The transcendence or dissolution at the end of cycles, right? Dissolving old structures and potentially rising above prior limitations, right? For better or worse. All right, we're going to switch back to the charts here for the rest of this. That's a lot more conducive to looking at things in a streamlined way. Here we are, Saturn and Neptune with the sun and moon. And they're here in this ecliptic degree. They're potentized not only by the degree of the ecliptic they're in, but by the relationships they're making. Saturn and Neptune are on either side connected to Uranus and Pluto. And this is going to dissolve old systems. This will sweep them away, which is one reason that Saturn and Neptune meeting here is signified entry into a war that analysts have long seen as an eschatological milestone. So it's going to take this entire eclipse cycle till August to see how much of the world is likely to be involved in this US-Iran war. But that's heightened, that's emphasized, that all correlates with Saturn and Neptune. And here we are with sun and moon right in this potent Shiat degree of the sky. So I think we can expect an emphasis on this conflict. I think we can expect an emphasis on the transformation of old systems, old values, the erosion of the old norms as this war continues. I mentioned that the new moon is sextile, very close, 0 degrees, 15 arc minutes, like a quarter of a degree. Just a quarter of one of these ticks from perfectly exact in its sextile to Uranus. Ptolemy said that sextiles were like friends or good neighbors working together. And we've since discovered that sextiles involve choice. So this whole lunar month we'll be likely to see the further unfolding of like dynamic, erratic, unexpected activity. Just like, this war came out of nowhere. Continue to expect the unexpected. Explosive and jarring developments are kind of Uranus' hallmark. They're his medicine as a cosmic force. And he is a wild humanitarian, but an unruly one. So Saturn, Neptune, and Uranus are like the main relationships that the sun is making this month. And when we leave the territory of the new moon and what it's doing directly, we have another 0 degree relationship in the sky. Very exciting. Eris and Chiron are at perfected conjunction for the exact alignment of the new moon. And this is going to challenge us to be honest about and to heal the parts of us that we hide, that we're ashamed of, that we feel are our secret weaknesses, our shame, our pain. Eris is connected to a shadow world. And as a sister of Pluto, she also seems connected to secrets occulted and taboo things, and dark desires. She's a force of syncopation, and she represents the offbeat. Okay, if you have a rhythm and you're following it, she will disrupt patterns, right? She will force consideration. She highlights the hidden, the shamed, the abused, and the forgotten. And her discovery in late 2005 was concordant with the Me Too movement, which took off in 2006. And now the whole world is beginning to comprehend the scope of the abuses revealed by the Epstein files. And that's just what we know. That's just what we see. That's just what they've been forced to reveal. So we can very confidently assume that it's the tip of a disgusting iceberg. Anyway, Chiron represents two things primarily: wounding and healing. Okay, pretty easy concept, but as such, he represents resolving very sensitive and vulnerable imbalances and issues. Wounding and healing are completely connected, and good healers have almost invariably been called onto their path by their own experience with pain and suffering. Just how that works. The two are a bonded pair, the wound and the medicine, the healing, and Chiron symbolizes all of this. So this entire cycle is likely to resonate hard with our need to do the self-checking, right? Eris has a slippery way of approach, right? You don't really see Eris coming. You rarely know Eris is coming at all. But one of the things she does is shine her light on those places that we do not want to look. Eris is a completely impersonal force. As a trans-Neptunian object, she is like not connected to the conscious, caring feelings. Okay, where Chiron comes inside Saturn's orbit. Okay, that brings him into the territory of the personal planets. Barely, little bit of Saturnine kind of caring, but just enough to heal. And it's that tough love that Chiron exhibits that makes for good medicine, people. But my point here is that Chiron cares enough to catalyze healing. Eris doesn't. Distinctly doesn't. Eris distinctly does not care about your feelings. She often pushes us to recognize those exact places that we do not want to go. Okay, and she does this by bringing situations or people into our lives that reflect the things we're not dealing with. They reflect the things we're not dealing with consciously, that we should, and we know we should on some level of ourselves, but we're not doing it. Eris forces these issues. Chiron, the comet Chiron, connects with the most primordial vulnerabilities that we have as humans. Like, it resonates with that feeling of being a soft, tiny human in a chaotic and incomprehensible universe. Right? Pisces asks us where we turn for warmth and comfort when things seem existentially oppressive. And we can't just stand and gaze into the abyss without tools, supports, medicines, right? Chiron is all this too. Tools, medicines, networks, supports, the whole healing journey in all its forms encapsulated here. But this healing will ask for shadow work, and radical honesty, hallmarks of Eris. And they have the potential, these Iridian transits, to touch very nervy areas. I would say this is not likely to make this cycle easier if you were looking for ease. But it is likely to infuse it with like next level healing potential, provided you can answer the Iridian call to authenticity and effort. Moving on to Mercury in Aquarius, we see that these two, Mercury and the North Lunar Node, have nestled themselves in quite close, 0 degree, merely 8 arc-minute relationship. And this is 4 degrees away from Mars, so this emphasizes Mercury, as one of the qualities of the North Node, is fixation and obsession. Mercury here is doing a couple other things. So to put this picture all together in one place, we have to see this trine to Jupiter. Mercury's trine Jupiter about 6 degrees, but Jupiter's in the most turned up degree of the zodiac. He's between the two brightest stars in the sky, and he is going to bring energy via the trine to Mercury North Node. So Mercury North Node and Mars, this Mercury Mars actually has a really bad reputation. Not for any like horrible reason. It's just like brash and mouthy and blunt and forward and crude, and for people who have Mercury and Mars joined in their chart, that they speak sailor. They can speak of the French. For people without Mercury and Mars connected in their charts, these people often seem like pretty awful, pretty just crude, aggressive, even maybe repugnant, sometimes taking things too far. With Jupiter here in this turned up degree, we might see that. We might see more of the taking things too far, more of the starting fights even. It's possible. Maybe starting arguments or altercations. Mercury with North Node can be very driven and compelled, especially around ideologies. And if we see this, don't be surprised this month. People taking their own thoughts, their own ideas way too seriously, very seriously. Getting sassy around it too. That's a Mars thing. And then in knowing to expect such raw energies, options can open up, like responding, right, from a higher perspective, not just reacting to the raw offensive power of Mars, Mercury, and Aquarius, but responding. So when we recognize this, we won't be taken aback and reactive. And we'll talk about the timings of all this during the transit section. We'll get to how this will be affecting everything this month. But scenarios that open up with the same Jupiter trine Mercury might reflect the Gemini Aquarius connection, which is an awesome connection and one of my favorite natural trines in the whole zodiac. Mental energies are going to be high, very high this whole cycle. And by focusing North Node, our minds, Mercury, on our goals, Mars, we can feel supported. Jupiter to make breakthrough, Aquarius, okay? An insight, breakthrough and insight, or Aquarians. So let me say that again. By focusing our minds on our goals this month, we can feel supported to have insights and make breakthroughs. That's the higher angles of this. The lower angles is it can lead to zealous fixation. It can lead to certainty in one's own correctness, be that true or not. And it can express a certain neurosis. Okay, I said we're coming back to Saturn and Neptune, and we're back. Coming back to Saturn and Neptune. This is a 36-year synodic period, which means that it takes 36 years for Saturn to go around and come back to wherever Neptune ended himself up in that 36 years, right? Between one conjunction and another 36-year period, roughly. And if you follow this channel, I've talked a lot about the power of this 36-year cycle. And I've talked a lot about it as it relates to communism, the Soviet Union, and Russia, and cycles of tightening and loosening authoritarian control. Since February 20th's exact alignment was followed 8 days later by war with Iran, I thought that I would look into this cycle's dates and its historical relationship with Iran, or its relationship with the history of Iran, and especially too with Iranian-U.S. relations. I didn't look into Iranian-Israeli relations, not because of any particular reason except that I am an American citizen and time is limited in these videos. So I can't express all this stuff. What I was looking for was just the big, broad strokes. All right. The first thing that I want to draw your attention to is this is a synodic period chart, a map of the alignments and when they were made between Saturn and Neptune. The second thing I want to say about this is that I want to thank Fran Arnett of faempowerment.com for teaching me how to think like this and model patterns like this. And I'm going to put a link in the description to her site. You'll see a lot more of her mentioned on this channel because we just started a podcast, so we're doing this project together. Thank you, Fran. Thank you for teaching me how to think like this. Bless your nose. All right. So we've got some cool data. 2026 US-Iran war. So I got interested in 1989 when Saturn and Neptune last met. What was happening in Iran, and especially with Iran-US relations? Well, it turns out that the Ayatollah Khomeini died in 1989, but before he did, he issued a death edict against the author of the Satanic Verses, Salman Rushdie. Now, the Satanic Verses was a fictional work, and this death edict shocked the Western world, and it really crippled the potential for U.S.-Iran diplomacy. And U.S.-Iran diplomacy was important because the U.S. went mucking about in Iran in 1953. What they called Operation Ajax was a CIA-backed coup to protect Western interests. They overthrew Iran's democratically elected prime minister and replaced him with Shah Pahlavi, an authoritarian who protected U.S. interests. And then going back to 1917, as everyone, as people familiar with world history know, 1917 is like the odd one out here because it was a very high stakes phase of World War I. So everything was kind of sideways. In 1917, we weren't dealing with U.S.-Iran relations because it was Persia. The name was changed to Iran during the Saturn-Neptune opposition. Saturn-Neptune opposition in 1935. So Persia, which was this very same territory prior to 1935, Persia was occupied by various forces during World War I, British, Russian, Turkish, German. But it was eventually left to the British. The United States at this time had a policy of non-interference and neutrality, but in 1917 actually joined the war on Britain's side. It was still the case that 2 years later, in 1919, there were pro-U.S. demonstrations in Tehran because the United States had been a humanitarian and educational presence in Persia since 1883, and that correlates with Saturn-Neptune conjunction here in late Aries, early Taurus in 1882. So in 1883, the U.S. established the U.S. legation in Persia, and it was the first official diplomatic post of the U.S. in the country. It was ostensibly to protect missionaries who had been there since a little before the 1840s, but in 1846, U.S.-Persia relations were like just getting started. U.S. missionaries were active in educational efforts, in medical efforts in northwestern Persia during the 1840s. And the U.S. was seen as an important counterweight to Russia and Britain from a Persian point of view, because Russia and Britain both were very interested in Persia. So the U.S. was kind of seen as a another kid on the schoolyard, basically. Someone to develop relationships with who might offset the relationships they have with these bullies. Good luck with that, but that was the scenario in 1846. The relationship between the U.S. and Iran was in its infancy. And keep in mind, we're talking about Persia. There is no Iran in 1846. So this keeps going back, but we're going to stop there with the U.S.-Iran analysis because, you know, naturally the trail ends right about here. The U.S. wasn't involved in Persian evolution before the 1840s to any significant extent. But if we take this around 23 prior cycles, we find something interesting. That we actually have another meeting in 1201 on fixed star Shiat. Stay with me. Saturn and Neptune meeting in the same degree of the sky, right? Roughly the 10th degree or so of Pisces, conjoined to Beta Pegasus, fixed star Al-Shiat. So my question was, and again, thank you to Fran Arnett of FA Empowerment for helping me to think like this. When was the last time that we had a same star alignment? And the answer is very clear. It's 1201. And when we pull that chart, we can see some pretty dramatic activity. The same period of time actually saw a Uranus-Pluto conjunction opposite Mercury. Incredibly powerful. But here in Pisces, what we're looking for. Now, I want to spend a little bit of time on this 1201 because Saturn and Neptune align less than 3 degrees from their February 20th, 2026, right? Here is February 20th, 2026, just last month where they aligned in the 11th degree of Pisces. And here, 25th January, 1201, where they align in the 8th degree of Pisces. Both are connected to fixed star Al-Shiat. And when we examine this 1201 historical period, almost to the date, the Treaty of Venice ignited the Fourth Crusade, which for people who study the Crusades, the fourth was like a big one, the pivotal one, the last real one, if you ask some people. But it saw the first conquest of Constantinople in its 900 years. That was huge. That was huge in the ancient world. At this time, Constantinople was the epicenter of the Byzantine Empire. Now, the capital had moved from Rome to Constantinople in the 5th century CE because Constantinople was so well fortified, impossible to assail. But these conquerors who saw it fall in 1203? It might have been 1203. Anyway, these conquerors weren't the usual Arabs, weren't the usual crusade enemies, but the traditional crusade enemies of the Byzantines. But these were Christian armies from Western Europe. They were Latinized. They weren't citizens of the Byzantine Empire. But they took Constantinople. They were the first to conquer the city militarily, like literally the first. They'd been around 1,000 years. And they attempted to dismantle the whole empire. And it did fall. It split for about 50 years into factions. But eventually one of those factions, the Nicaeans, rekindled the empire. And so the Byzantine Empire lasted another 200 years until about 1450, when the Turkish army, the Ottoman army, completely surrounded Constantinople. From that 1450 point siege, it still took 3 years. 3 years before it would become the Istanbul that it is today. And interestingly, Constantinople was so well resourced and defended that it still took the Turks 3 years to conquer it and rename it Istanbul. And that heralded the new age of the Ottoman Empire. So we're we're in the way back machine. Okay, keep in mind, I'm talking about events in 1450. We're looking at a chart in 1201. That's confusing. What they both have in common, Saturn-Neptune conjunctions. 1450 was a Saturn-Neptune conjunction. We don't have time to get into all this deeply, but that 1450 Saturn-Neptune conjunction happened right about here, just about opposite the Saturn-Neptune conjunction of 1201. All right, all of this has been material that we've been looking at relative to this current new moon this month, March 2026, when Sun and Moon meet, Saturn and Neptune. It's going to be an awesome new moon connected to transformative power from every angle. Transformative to systems, transformative to structures, transformative to our conception of ourselves as humans spiritually, transformative to our vision and how we implement it collectively. The patterns of our real world experience will most likely continue to transform radically in front of our eyes. And with that, let's check out the transits. All right, we're looking at the waxing transits. That's the time between the new moon and the full moon. That'll be March 18th, full moon April 1st. We'll check out the waxing quarter moon on the way, but this is the waxing transits. The new moon is going to happen after Jupiter-Venus square and Sun sextile Uranus. So the first thing that comes into play is that Saturn and Pluto sextile, they hit 0 degree of orb on the 19th of March, although they won't go exact till the 28th of March. So we'll be in a period of time where Saturn and Pluto will be kind of an umbrella under which the other influences are happening. And we can think about Saturn and Pluto as it'll last almost till the waning moon, the waning quarter moon. It signifies transformation of the real world around us, the structures, the symbols, the systems of all kinds, especially resonant with government and law. And for individuals, it signifies a chance to repattern, right? Repattern by replacing old worn out ideas, especially about our self and our life path. And the Sun will be with Saturn on the 25th. So we'll have this Sun, Pluto, Saturn period of time, period of intensity from really, I'd say starting about the 23rd and going to the 30th. And then on the 20th, we have the first real exact alignment of this lunar period, which is Mercury stations direct. That brings an intensity of mercurial energy, could make communication different, strange, weird, challenged, but it's different for everyone. So I don't like to make, absolute statements about Mercury direct. Mars trine Jupiter on the 21st is a chance to pursue our goals. We have from the 20th through to the 23rd, a lot of energy, especially supportive of humanitarian and philosophical goals. We have that Gemini-Aquarius connection with Mars in Aquarius and Jupiter in Gemini. And this is going to heighten awareness. It's going to heighten insight. And Canopus and Sirius, these two fixed stars, really the two brightest stars in the sky, are both giving Jupiter extra power in this degree of the ecliptic. So Mars is in a degree that asks, what could possibly be beyond all this? Like late Aquarius, early Pisces asks the question, what's beyond all this? What's outside or what's next, right? So what I see here is a really ripe opportunity for breakthrough. If you're interested, if you're bored in your patterns and you're interested in what comes next, this Neptune Sun conjunction that that perfects on the 22nd is really going to connect us consciously with our deepest dreams. And this is a great time to springboard. This could be a really great time to springboard and anchor those dreams, dreams of new patterns, dreams of escaping old patterns and establishing something new. Very powerful time, just roughly this week, 20th to 27th, very roughly. The Sun conjunct Neptune on 22nd March is going to increase the connection between Neptune's dreams and inspiration and a higher sense of purpose, or sense of higher purpose, or both. And the sun reflects life direction, generally speaking. So we can all harness this connection. And then as we move towards the waxing moon on 25th, the Sun conjuncts Saturn. And this overlaps with Sun square Moon, Sun sextile Pluto, and Venus Eris too. Yeah, it does overlap a little with Venus Eris. So it could be a difficult time, generally speaking. We have Sun Saturn, Sun sextile Pluto, and Venus Eris all for the waxing quarter moon. But before we start to detail that or break it down, I want to just take a look at that moon on the 25th of March, this first quarter or waxing square moon. And I see 0-degree relationships. I mean zeroed. I mean exact and perfected from Pluto and to both Sun and Moon. And that gives me the idea that this will be a transformative lunar cycle indeed. And now let's take a little bit closer look at this mess that I said would be a little bit difficult, likely to be challenged. We have Sun sextile Pluto, and this is great for making changes that involve conscious choice on your part. You can anchor it on March 25th, that choice. And if there's a habit or like a self-talk tape on infinite replay in your mind, or a food or a substance or anything around how you escape pain and seek bliss, that's Pisces, Sun. This can change. And if there's anything that needs to change, you can jump right up. Jump up and ride this wave, ride it to success. So there's a lot of signatures here. There's a lot of signatures of being able to change by anchoring something new, anchoring a new dream, a new vision. Venus conjoins Eris on the 26th, and this it intermingles the energy of effort with relationships. It intermingles the energy of chaos with appreciation, and it connects strife and healing recovery. This blesses healing because keep in mind, if you remember, Chiron is with Eris. Chiron is very close to Eris. Chiron's here with Venus Eris. This could be really great, and we'll talk more about the Venus Eris connection and the shadow work. This could be really great for healing work and really bless some of the harder things that might be put upon some of us, some of the harder recovery stages, getting into that painful material. Venus can really assist this. And then we have Ceres square Pluto. This is a very Plutonic day here on the 28th because we have Saturn sextile to Pluto, this sort of larger bit, and then we have Ceres square to Pluto. The two on one day, two exact Pluto alignments should be Plutonic, which means transformative, which means we can read it as intense and polarizing, and ultimately it's going to change things. This could be a before and after kind of day. And then we get a break. We get a sweet break before the full moon, April 1st. So let's check that out now. All right, it's the full moon, April 1st, 2026. We have a sun in Pisces, a moon in Virgo, and they're T-squared by Jupiter, Jupiter is in one of the most massively powerful degrees of the sky that we have relative to fixed stars, and the sun and moon are in an area of the sky that is a real kind of power point, power axis for reasons that we'll explore during this segment. The Pisces Virgo axis that this new moon takes place in is really the fundamental axis of human experience. And I say that because of all the axes represented in the heavens, like, Gemini, Sag, Cancer, Capricorn. Pisces, Virgo are the largest. They're the longest processes, but they are, in psychological astrology, they are both connected to culmination of the previous 5 signs. Now, I'm not going to say too much about that here, except that Virgo takes the Aries to Leo process of egoic development, and it tempers it, and it generates humility and service activity, and that makes it ready for Libra relationships and the second half of the chart, where Pisces takes the kind of Libra to Aquarius journey of social exploration and tempers it by transcending and dissolving the old, incorporating and moving on, making way for Aries, new journeys, new beginnings, new steps. So it's helpful to understand in context of the whole thing. But really, these are just the weirdest opposition pair, because like I said in the new moon segment of the full lunar cycle overview, Virgo can be correlated to the waking self, and Pisces to the dreaming self or dreaming body or dreamer or whatever. Different traditions call it different things, but this goes to like the fundamental split. Right brain, left brain, where Virgo is our left brain awareness and Pisces is very distinctly our right brain. But I went over that already in the new moon video. So what I want to say here, relevant to this full moon, is that the sun in Pisces orients the force of this process to Pisces' mysterious and incomprehensible aspect, while a moon in Virgo is going to reflect that light to us from the perspective of attempting to make organized sense of things. Virgo, it's a prerogative. This brings together the energies of you can't make sense of that with, oh, I must make sense of everything. So there could be a distinct sense this full moon of being split in some way, represented by the Pisces Virgo axis. We could experience a sense of cognitive dissonance. We could experience this in our interactions with others. It could be around people trying to explain unexplainable things. Or we could feel a need to organize our world, even as structures are dissolving and mutating in front of us. We may collectively struggle with things that don't seem real. That could be a big theme this month. Or even if we can tell if it's real or not, there can be elements of confusion, including how to respond. The moon is on a wonderful star, a beautiful star, Vindamayatrix, and gets a bad reputation in places, even called the Widowmaker. But this Vindamayatrix is a sister to Alpha Virgo, Spica, the blessing hand of the goddess. This is the goddess gathering hand, her other hand. I want to switch into the planetarium view to check this out. So now we're in the planetarium looking at the full moon in Virgo on April 1st. And what I want to say is that Vindamayatrix is representing the other hand of the goddess. Spica here is often represented as Spica meant a spike of grain, and it was given to this star because this star was understood to be representative of the blessing of the goddess. The goddess is this figure, is his head, legs, Spica holding out grain, and Vindematrix was the grape gatherer. So Epsilon Virgo here, Vindematrix is associated with good work, gathering good favor, earning the blessings, associated with Spica. It's considered like Spica. If you have Spica activated in your chart, you're likely to be blessed, receive blessings, etc. If you have Vindematrix active in your chart, you're likely to be motivated to do a lot of good work towards accumulating blessings. That's just like a very common, very textbook, very rough understanding. But we can break things down that way if it's helpful. You can decide. Vindematrix resonates especially with service work and the upliftment of others, all the things that Virgo is famous for. And the name Vindematrix means grape gatherer, and wine making was understood in Greece to be an alchemy. So this grape gathering arm of the goddess was connected to the idea that transformed the earthy into the spirited, right? Wine transforms the gross into the subtle. So in one hand, Virgo holds grain, and in the other hand, she's gathering grapes. And, you know, it's all symbolic of Virgo's earthy work towards success and victory. And I mentioned that this is a pretty activated degree or an area of the sky. And that is because right about here, we have Messier 87, also known as the Virgo A galaxy, also known as the super galactic center. That's the object that our galaxy orbits around. That's the short version. Also, we have up in Coma Berenices right about here, we have the North Galactic Pole. We talked about the South Galactic Pole because it's in the degree of Shiat, and it marks the degree of the Saturn-Neptune conjunction and the degree of the new moon. We talked about South Galactic Pole being about here above Sculptor, and North Galactic Pole is here at the top of Coma Berenices. So these aren't overly aligned with the ecliptic degrees, but if you look at ascension declination and write ascension as calculated from the celestial equator, we're very aligned. This is a powerful degree of the sky with super galactic center and North Galactic Pole in alignment with the moon. Yeah, that area of the sky is charged with epic power. I made a video on the Super Galactic Center, and I'll leave a link in the description. It goes unmentioned by many astrologers, but it's a PowerPoint. The sun is backed by the stars of Pisces, opposite in the sky from Virgo, and opposite in its approach to information, like via organized logic and rational thought. That's Virgo. Pisces gets totally disorganized and irrational in its approach to information. Like I mentioned in the new moon section, dreams, visions, daydreams, hallucinations, download, Zen flashes of Satori, knowings, inspirations. That's Pisces language. That's how Pisces acts in our lives. Where they're the same, where Pisces and Virgo are the same, because an axis will always be the same and it'll always be opposite. Any two signs, right? Self, others, same, opposite. Pisces, Virgo, always the same and opposite. The way they're the same is that both emphasize understanding, kindness, and improving the world around them. Okay, there's 100% Venn diagram overlap on those points. Pisces does this in really heartfelt ways, compassionately, and with inspired panache, a theatrical flair, however you like to think of it. And Virgo does it more often via like rigorous analysis to discover an optimum strategy to provide meaningful benefit to others. But both stay away from the spotlight comparatively, and both work equally hard to leave the world a better place than it found it. Okay? In the end, Virgo needs Pisces to chill and counteract the natural anxiety of Virgo, while Pisces needs Virgo to give it structure, give it organization. Virgo has a highly organized and earthy approach, and it gives direction to the watery impulses of Pisces. This is a metaphor we can easily conceptualize as Virgo being a riverbank, an earthy riverbank which directs the flow of the Piscean waters. That's the correct relationship in waking life between these two. If you want to understand Virgo, study Buddhism, because it has the largest corpus of any religion, more words, more books, and the specificity and granular detail of Buddhism, of Siddhartha Gautama's teachings, the precision and erudition and clarity stands in really stark contrast to a Piscean approach. If you want to understand Pisces, I was going to say, if you want to understand Pisces, study Christianity, but we're going to have to caveat this a little bit. I'm not talking about churchianity. I'm talking about the things that Yeshua ben Joseph said. And I'm not talking about whether Yeshua ben Joseph was a real historical character or not. I'm literally just talking about Christianity as it is, face value. Take it or leave it. You can do either, but Yeshua ben Joseph still took the 600 some laws and commandments of Judaic spiritual code and taught that they all say one of two things. He distilled it all to two rules: love God, love each other. That's Pisces, people. The Buddha Dharma, with lists of like 12 chains of dependent origination and the Eightfold Noble Path and 24 things you shouldn't step in, are like, that's a Virgo approach. Love, just love, like seriously, just love. That's Pisces. Pisces is awesome this way. When we look at the philosophies that reflect Virgo, we really do. We have to question ourselves. We have to question reality. And here it's just so simple. Just love. Just love. They're two opposite angles. They're two opposite paths up the mountain, right? Pisces and Virgo. But what they share is, again, based on understanding, kindness, and this cosmic campsite rule of leaving everything better than you found it. Okay. So with that in mind, I want to move on to looking at Jupiter. Jupiter's position here is dramatic. Jupiter is in the ecliptic degree of fixed star Alpha Canis Major Sirius and Alpha Carina Canopus. Very bright, very significant, very powerful stars. This is likely to do two things. Good news first. The first thing is it will infuse our thinking via this trine to Mercury with genius, delight, humor, and inventiveness. And the second is, via the T-square, it will act to polarize the new moon. And the new moon is already polarized by its fullness, by its axial relationship to each other. And now Jupiter steps into the middle with square aspects, and square aspects from Jupiter emphasize, they turn it up, they overextend. Like you'll find extraneous speech, you'll find too much, you'll find just going too far with Jupiter squares. And so In the Virgo dimension, too much. In the Pisces dimension, already too much. Look at all these Pisces placements, and now we have Jupiter from this turned up degree, turning it up, as well as turning the opposite up. Woo! And don't forget, not only does Jupiter turn things up all on his own, but Sirius, the star that he's in the ecliptic degree of, has a notorious reputation for turning things up too far, too far. So everything that we had to say about the marked opposition between Virgo moon and Pisces sun. All right, we have the further polarizing force of south galactic pole for the new moon, and we have the polarizing force of north galactic pole and the super galactic center bearing down on the full moon. None of this will make things easy, and this is all gonna get accentuated and accelerated, and these are going to be very hard waves for most people to ride. Okay, and there are a few meaningful solutions beyond recognizing the wave for what it is. Okay, this is going to divide people along lines between the heart and the mind. Maybe we can, it's guaranteed, take it to the bank. The logic and the feelings are going to get split this month. And what we mentally think and what we deeply know, what we actually really know, are going to be potentially pitted against each other. There will be polarity this month, and it looks like the kind of primal polarity that we all relate to, regardless of whether we have placements in Pisces or placements in Virgo. This is pretty universal. Furthermore, Pluto polarizes as a natural function of his influence and is making a 0-degree sextile to Saturn, less than half a degree. They're close to perfection, and the Saturn with Sun is just further emphasizes polarity during this cycle. So we step back from that, we put it all in one place. What do we get? We get Jupiter in Sirius and Canopus degree, T-squaring the Sun and Moon opposition this full moon, April 1st, heightening both dynamics simultaneously. This is challenging. This is challenging, and we're going to be asked to build a bridge. It's not going to be an easy bridge. It'll be a long bridge, but we're asked to build a bridge between our heart and our minds this month in order to hold the whole picture, in order to hold the entire bundle, if you will, of what these stars have to offer. Onward, friends, to the waning transits. All right, the waning transits, this is nice. If you look, just eyeball this from space, you'll see a lot of positive. There's only 2 squares, and they both involve benefics, what are traditionally called benefics, Jupiter and Venus. They square well. It's one of the reasons they're benefics. But let's jump right in. The 3rd of April, that's going to be 2 days after the full moon, and we're looking at a period of time leading towards next new moon. This is the waning transits. On the 3rd of April, kicking off the waning transits, we have Mercury trine Jupiter. It's good for humor, insight. Again, this is a Gemini and Aquarius trine, and it's good for intellectual breakthrough. On that same day, the 3rd, Venus squares Pluto, and this may allow appreciation of transformations that are taking place. So Venus in Pisces is very open-minded, and Pluto squares connect the energy, but usually in a little bit of a challenging way. And the challenge with Venus-Pluto tends towards creepy expressions. So everybody be careful, be safe out there. And if you're in a situation where you could attract unwanted sexual attention, take extra precautions. Sun square Jupiter goes exact on the 5th. And this tends to bring big personality, tends to bring big expressions. Jupiter as we talked about, heralds expanse, success, and more. And, Jupiter Sun oppositions, this is like a quintessential abundance signature, right? Abundance, right? So when people talk about manifesting abundance, and some people love to talk about manifesting abundance, we need to be really careful. Those people especially need to be very careful, because abundance just means a lot of something. Okay, Jupiter just grows. And we need to be careful what we're doing or getting or being a lot of. We do ourselves a real service. We do everyone around us a real service to be careful at this time. All right, onward. Venus conjoins Ceres on the 6th of April. And I like this aspect, and I like the feeling of Venus and Ceres. There's a kind of raw appreciation and delicate sensibilities of Venus, and it's combined with Ceres' kind of wise, old, heartfelt humanitarian wisdom. I think, like Venus-Pluto contact, it could allow angles of appreciation. Not for so much the processes at play. Like we have this Venus square Pluto. I was saying this could help us appreciate transformation. I think this will help us appreciate people, the feelings, the actual collective experience of the humans who are being transformed. Transformation is like an impersonal process, but Ceres Venus connects us to the heart of the matter. And it puts Venus' loving heart in contact with Ceres' connection to the collective emotional body and to higher emotional consciousness. All this signified by Ceres. Then moving a couple days forward, the 7th, 8th, and 9th, going exact on the 8th, sees Mars sextile to Uranus. And this is a great energy under which to do things differently, innovatively, creatively, in different ways, using new approaches to do the same stuff. You do the same things in different ways. That'll probably work out really well right around this time. Neptune is right with Mars here. So Mars sextiles Uranus, but if we were to look at the charts, you can see it. Mars conjoins Neptune on the 13th. So here on the 8th, we have a cluster munch, and there's amazing energy here around accomplishment. Mars linking it to higher sources of inspiration, insight, and self-knowledge. It's like extra fuel in the gas tank for Mars. So do something weird. Do something unexpected and unusual. Like I said, do the same things, but do them differently. That brings us to the waning quarter moon. So when we're looking at this waning quarter moon, we're mostly what I see is a moon opposite Jupiter, T-squared, by Sun Eris-Chiron conjunction. But a Sag moon opposite Jupiter could be intensified all on its own, and it could be uplifted, it could be inspired, or T-squared Eris-Chiron Sun, it could be challenged to do the emotional work that's being asked of it. That's a really common thing. We might find this month a hard lunar month, and some of us might be pushed into our own wounds, our own traumas, in order to try to reclaim territory there. Back with the waning transits, that was the waning quarter moon. The next set of perfections we see is on the 13th, where we have a Mars Neptune and Venus Jupiter. And this is great. This is absolutely great. Mars conjunct Neptune is art and creativity, the vivid expression of inspired ideas. And Venus sextile Jupiter, also very creative too. Artistic talent and creativity follow all Jupiter-Venus placements. It's just one of the hallmarks of their contact is that they give rise to artistic expressions. So the 12th and 13th could be amazing, really vivid, inspired days. And the 14th sees Mercury sextile to Uranus. But it's an electrified time for thought. It's an electrified time for communication, commerce, ideas, exchange, learning, and any kind of deep study. This is going to be an amazing time, overlapped with Sun conjoined Eris, which goes exact on the 15th. Now, making an offering to Eris is as simple as taking the time to identify one pattern in your life that causes you or the people around you discomfort or disease. So if you can identify one pattern in your life, and you can recognize your own power to uproot or change, to transform that pattern of emotional energy or activity or thought into something more uplifted. And this is the same as recognizing how you're complicit in your behavior, how you're complicit in the patterns of your life, because we have to see our own hand in these things, right? And because it's your hand, you have the power to extend or withdraw it, right? Recognizing our blind spots and the troubles they cause is like an offering to Eris and a way to harness this energy. Yeah, if it's a messed up, chaotic day, or you experience passive aggressive behavior or just cutty behavior for no reason, no seeming reason, just could be the sun passing Eris. But yeah, when I talk about making offerings to Eris, it's a way of thinking about using energies constructively and riding waves that are going to be moving through already. You might as well have some fun with it, do something constructive with it, and approach it from the point of view of wisdom. All right, we're almost there, folks. We got 2 more transits to detail. Mars sextile Pluto, famous for forceful expressions. So like I said, Sun Eris, right? If we see cutty stuff, if we see passive aggressive, if we see aggressive, could be Mars Pluto. It could be Sun Eris, could be Mars Pluto. I think that this is a time near the end of the month leading up into the beginning of the next lunar cycle on April 17th. I think this is a time where we may see violence intensify. At the same time, Mercury conjoins Neptune, which will give a distinct counterbalance to that. And it'll provide energies of peace, of Neptune's Pacific thinking. We'll be most likely talking and thinking about peace here in the midst of what look likely to be escalating aggressions on the geopolitical stage. And that takes us right to the 17th, right to the next new moon. And here we are. We see the new moon with Eris Chiron, all in 35, 37 degree of Pisces. Very, very tightly knit with this shadow work and a deep digging, radical honesty kind of resolution of trauma's signature. Very complicated signature, Eris Chiron. So I'll see you next month. See you next month to break that down. And that's it, friends. That's all that I have this month to say about these transits. I want to make you aware of a podcast that Fran Arnett, whose name has come up several times in this video, and I have released. She and I just have kind of awesome conversations, the kind of conversations that take a while to put yourself back together after. And so we wanted to kind of spread that madness out into the world. And to that end, we started Cosmos and Catonia. Deep Astrology and Beyond. We're on Patreon and YouTube, and there's links in the description. Got an event coming up with the ISAA, International Sidereal Astrology Association. We're doing a podcast April 8th with, it'll be me and Don Patak of Freedom Through Astrology, Don Bird or Don Patak. And there's a link in the description to that too. We'll be talking about doing evolutionary astrology. That's tropical territory in a constellational framework. So he and I have both kind of like snuck into the evolutionary world and like stole the blueprints and snuck back to Camp Constellational with them and figured out how to apply all that, how to map it out, tested it, and we're going to be talking about it April 8th. Evolutionary astrology in a constellational framework with Don Patak of Freedom Through Astrology with the ISAA. Link in the description. Yeah, I think that's all. We made it. And we'll see you next month. I'll see you next month for this crazy new moon conjoined to Eris and Chiron. And I wish everybody the best, the very, very most excellent best till then.